All right, welcome to another exciting episode of Crazy Talk. All right, so in this episode, we are going to be talking about the Toothfarie, the Boogeyman, the Sandman, and the Bellybutton Man. And I think that'll cover it for today. So, if you caught the morning edition of the show, we were talking about the Sandman and the Boogeyman, and for me, the Boogeyman has always held a special place, particularly because when I was a kid, I had my own personal Boogeyman. He lived underneath my bed. I knew that at night, if I went to sleep, he was going to nibble on my toes. And then as an adult, I carried that fear with me. So now, even today, I will literally wrap my toes into my blankets at the end of the bed, just so if they happen to dangle off, I've replaced the Boogeyman with snakes now. So in my mind, it's snakes that will come up and nibble at my toes. But we have these fantastic. I'll get the word out here in a minute. We have these creatures, these cryptids, our own personal cryptids. You've got Bigfoot, you've got Mothman. Well, we have our very own set of fantastic creatures, and that you go to sleep and you lose a tooth. You put the tooth under your pillow, and then you get a quarter. Or in my case, the Toothfarie has a wide range of things that he or she, whatever your Toothfarie identifies as. Whatever you identify your Toothfarie as. Mine was always a female character in my world. And she would come, and she would leave toys, actually. So it started out as quarters, and as I got older, I was rewarded with small toys under my pillow. Sometimes it was a plush, sometimes it was a car, or I was really into Micro Machines was the toy of choice. So I'd have a new pack of Micro Machines from the Toothfarie, which, to be fair, like it's a $3 to $5 toy for a tooth. I mean, a piece of bone falls out of your skull, you stick it under your pillow, and you get a $5 toy. As an adult, if a bone falls out of the side of your face, one of a few things has happened, and I promise you're not getting a $5 bill underneath your pillow. So, that's at least in my world, that was how the Toothfarie operated. Now, the Boogeyman was interesting, and you can call whatever your Boogeyman is or was. Mine kind of morphed and changed shape as I got older. So my Boogeyman started out as a blob, like a shapeless, formless blob. Imagine a really dark, shadowy egg that with like even a dark yolk center that just kind of mushed underneath the bed. And then at night, that shadowy egg creature would then come out and take whatever form it needed to take on. And given the shadows in my room, it varied from evening to evening exactly what that particular monstrosity would look like. And in fact, if you again caught the early morning show, I asked you to send me pictures of what draw a picture of what your personal Boogeyman looked like. So I went ahead and I drew my Boogeyman. So this is my childhood Boogeyman. Right here, and again, truly, it was just like a shapeless blob that just kind of lived in my room. And as I got older, okay, and when I say older, I'm like 19, 20 years old. The Boogeyman for me kind of changed. You could call it a shadow person, call it whatever it is you want to call the Boogeyman. To me, one of the most frightening young adult moments I had was I was laying in bed, and I thought I heard a noise. You get that feeling that you're being watched. And I opened my eyes and looked and saw this dark void standing in my room. And it truly was a frightening moment to me. But it was one of those moments where It was so frightening. I couldn't shout. I literally just wanted to lay there and watch this thing. And I can't honestly say I even wanted to shout about it or go over and investigate. I kind of just wanted to see if it was going to move. One of those whole don't breathe and it'll go away kind of things. What was odd about this, so and I've got a picture I drew, so you can kind of see this weird squatty thing that was kind of hanging out at the opposite end of my room where my door was. The thing that really startled me the most about this particular visitation of the boogeyman was that whatever was there, whatever my mind's eye saw, you could see the light from the hallway outlined in the door, except, and this is what really kind of startled me, the creature, whatever it was, the shadow person, the boogeyman that was there at the door, actually stopped the light. So you could see the light kind of going around the door frame, and then you could see where the light was touching this thing. For all I know, it was a bathrobe on a hook hanging by the door. I have no idea. To this day, don't know what it was. So I kind of painted up what my 19 and 20-year-old boogeyman looked like, and it was just kind of a squatty. When I say squatty, it was just kind of frumpy looking with a squished head. But it was probably a good 5.5 feet tall, whatever this thing was, based on where the light was being blocked from the door. So those are my boogeyman. Now, I have seen what caused me to start Crazy Talk back several years ago was just the fact that I have seen a number of things. I've seen these shadow people that are discussed every once in a while, and in creatures and entities. I've seen things I cannot explain. I live in a haunted house, so that in itself is going to be at least a couple of shows. But this particular entity being was not at the house I currently live at. It was at my second apartment, actually, is where it began to visit me. So that's my experience with a boogeyman. And I love the story and the lore. And I say story and lore. The boogeyman is just kind of typically used to scare kids to go to sleep. Hey, the boogeyman will get you. Actually, kind of a side note to the boogeyman, I didn't use the boogeyman when my kids were young to scare them into good behavior. I actually took it one step farther. When I was, I forget where I was, I stopped at a little gas station, and they sold in this little tiny wooden box these little paper dolls. They almost look like matchsticks with arms and somebody drawn clothing on them. But they came with a little booklet that said that if you put these little dolls on your nightstand, that in the middle of the night they would come alive and take care of whatever little problems or make your dreams better or some kind of fancy little story that went along with them. I paid the $2 and picked them up. As my kids got a little bit older to understand things, I started telling them about these little people that actually lived in the walls. Now, at the time, the apartment that I was in, you could hear things in the walls. The walls were very thin, so I'm assuming it was plumbing or whatever. But you could also hear somebody in the room next door. So I would put my children to bed, and I would tell them the story that these are the little wall people, and at night they come alive. They actually live in the wall. And then I would have my wife in the room next door, and at the right time, when I would talk to the wall people, I would call out to the wall people, and she would knock on the wall, and the kids flipped out because they knew the wall people were real. And then the next day, the little wall people had returned to their little box, and life was good. And that kept the kids in bed. It was amazing, and that was my version of the boogeyman to my children. And I'm sure that they will one day fabricate their own fancy little story about their boogeyman. But then, so we have the boogeyman. We have the Toothfarie. The Toothfarie brings us, gifts and is pretty pretty benign as a character. We've got the Boogeyman, which is very frightening, even to adults, depending on if you have issues with sleep paralysis. But then we have this deity that we call the Sandman. I call it a deity, but yeah, we this omnipresent being that comes to us in our sleeps and helps lull us to sleep, and sprinkles this magical dust on us, and it gathers in our eyes and gives us these wonderful dreams. And I think that it's beautiful that we have these stories, these modern myths. For instance, with the Sandman, it's really it's kind of a cool concept, because you wake up in the middle of the night, you're a little kid, and you're like, hey, why do I have rocks in my eyes? Every morning I wake up, there's little tiny rocks in the corner of my eyes. And, it's the Sandman. It makes perfect sense. It's a parent's way of saying, I honestly don't know the physics about it. It's dirt from your pillow, and your eyes get runny when you're asleep, and it's just your eyes' way of cleaning. It's the Sandman. Sandman drops sand in your eyes, helps you go to sleep and have good dreams. Perfectly logical to me. So my only complaint with the Sandman, okay, and this is oversharing here, but I have a full-time job. There are times that I'm just over it, and I'm like, all right, I'm kind of throwing in the towel for the day. I think the Sandman is the same way. The Sandman has moments where he's like, you know what, this is my last kid for the night. I'm kind of done. I'm about through my dust. I'm just going to give you the rest of the bag, kid. Here you go. And he shakes the crap out of that bag right into your eyeballs. You wake up the next day and you're like, well, my eyes are sealed shut and I can't see a thing. You take your finger up there and you pop off a cap full of dust. And you're like, well, that's gross. It's like a nickel-sized booger in my eyeball. And you throw it around. Then your eyes are all pink, and then your parents are like, well, you got pink eye. You can't go to school. Which, interesting enough, well, let's talk about pink eye for a minute. Pink eye, when you were a kid, at least when I was a kid, and that was back in the day, Jesus was the upperclassman, so it tells you how old I am. Back in the day, if you had pink eye, that was a ticket out of school for a week. And if you looked at somebody that had pink eye, you were going to get pink eye too. It was that contagious. And I mean, seriously, if you look in the pink eyes, your eyes will become pink. It was kind of like The Ring, but with pink eye, In 7 days, you looked into the eyes. If you don't look into somebody else's eyes, you're going to get pink eye. And sure enough, everybody got pink eye in class. And it just was what it was. I don't know if we were all running around licking each other in the eyeball or how that happened. I mean, as an adult today, somebody's like, oh, I've got pink eye. It's like, dude, that sucks. Have some eye drops, keep working. I mean, it's not a big deal anymore, and I don't get why it's not a big deal. Back in the day, it was the single most contagious thing on the planet. But I digress. So, the Sandman, he pops all this stuff, and you got this pink eye, and it's like, oh my goodness, the guy just kind of gave up at the end of his shift and dumped the rest of the bag of sand into your eye. Kind of a jerk move, but it happens to the best of us, and that's just having eyeballs, I guess. Even my dog. There's a Sandman for dogs, apparently, because my dog, you want to talk about weird, goopy eyeballs. I tell you what, they can get pretty nasty. So even dogs have Sandman people, dogs, things. Which leads me to my last interesting character. So this is one that I think deserves a place in the pantheon of modern day mythology. And again, this goes right back to, if you saw the morning show, then you know exactly where we're going. We are talking about, of course, Bellybutton Man. Now, to the ladies, I'll just put it out there. I don't think... I think that the Bellybutton Man is sexist. I can't honestly say that I believe that the Bellybutton Man visits women. But the Bellybutton Man definitely visits men. And if you've never experienced the Bellybutton Man, then you're probably not fully a man, because it didn't start visiting me until I was about 14 years old. But what it is, just to kind of clear the air if you didn't catch the first show, the belly button man lives inside your belly button, and he's a very, very, very tiny person, itty bitty tiny person, but he's got this wicked long finger that he sticks out through your belly button, and while you're going through your day, he sits there and he rubs and he rubs and he rubs at the outside, or the inside rather, but he rubs right there at your t-shirt, and he's pulling in all the little fibers from your t-shirt. Just wriggle, 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 wriggle. And then at the end of the day, you get home, you take your shirt off, you're like trying to stretch and relax, and you look down and you're like, oh my God, I've got a sock in my belly button. This is awful. And you pull it out, and then you can, honestly, I think, I could be wrong, but somebody should try this and let me know how it works out for them. Somebody should take a year and collect all of the lint that the belly button man has pulled into their navel cavity, and then make a ball, and then have somebody spin that into yarn and see if we really could make a whole sock out of that lint. Speaking of lint, to completely get off track, I got a new dryer, and I think I figured out where all my left socks are going. As soon as I do a single load of laundry, somebody is totally ripping me off, because whenever I pull that lint trap out, there's probably a pair of pants worth of lint in every single load. There is no way. I know what I'm putting in my dryer. It's gone through the wash cycle, and I pull it out and I put it in the dryer, and somehow, every single time, there is just this massive amount of fiber. I don't know what articles of clothing I am sacrificing to the dryer gods, or why they're so vengeful towards my clothing, but it's always blue. I could do a whole load of white shirts, and then I pull the lint trap out, and it's this blue-gray color every single time. I don't know. I don't get it. It blows my mind. I can't honestly say I've ever done a whole load of whites. I'm not one of those kind of people that, one, has a lot of whites that would justify washing by themselves, or two, cares enough about the whites to wash them separate from the color clothing. So that's probably why it always comes out blue. But I'm just saying, it's weird. And I think that I think some dryer manufacturer owes me at least a bag of socks, because their machine is, I don't know if it's sitting there like a cheese grater and just like grating away at my socks as they're tumbling. I got nothing. But a lot of lint. And it's pretty suspicious. I'm not going to lie. The amount of lint, I'll have to show you. I probably won't. The amount of lint that is collected in one load, it's got to be enough for a sock. And if somebody out there has the ability to collect their lint and spin it into yarn, I want to know how much yarn in a week's worth of doing laundry, how much yarn could we make? How much of our clothing gets sacrificed every time to the dryer gods? This has been Crazy Talk. Stay crazy.